Welcome to the Backrank Podcast, Grandmaster Insights from Behind the Lines.
Today, we are going to talk about what makes a great chess player. And when it comes to great chess players, we all start thinking of Magnus Carlsen, arguably the greatest chess player in the history of the game. Evgeny, what do you think about Magnus? And what's your opinion of him as a player?
Yeah, I think, this is one of these topics that is covered by everyone. You could see like the thumbnails of Magnus's face on every YouTube's channel. But I think very few people really understand what makes him a great player, how he's different compared to, let's say, to some previous generations. And also very few people understand his journey and the lessons that you could learn from it, even, not as a professional player, as an amateur player. So we could talk about all of these things. So I'm going to start out by saying that I believe that Magnus is by far the best player in history. And the main reason for that is because he is dominating the field of geniuses. He's like a genius above all the other geniuses. If we look back at Kasparov era and also like before that, you could see that there were a few players who were like mostly dominating, but the field overall, even though obviously they were strong players, but they were no match to players of of today's caliber. That's one thing. I think most of the top players today are literally geniuses and they would be totally crushing it 20 years ago. And the other thing is that with time, computers became an equalizer. So now there's no such thing as getting like an advantage out of the opening. So back in Kasparov's era, whoever had more resources, they had a huge advantage because they could analyze so much. And other players would really struggle because of that. So like it was an achievement to get out of the opening with a decent position against Gary with any color, to be honest. And now it's very different. So it's like Magnus doesn't have a huge upper hand in the openings. And also he's facing other geniuses and he's consistently destroying the competition for like the last, over 10 years, which is insane in my opinion.
So it would be fair to say that, for you personally, he is greater than Fischer, greater than Kasparov, because I agree that, all of the world champions are geniuses, but some of them seem to be more geniuses than others, right? Like everybody knows about Bobby Fischer, but less people know about Tigran Petrosyan, let's say. Only,
Chess
the
nerds.
true chess lovers and aficionados are aware of, all the world champions in the history of the game. So, and for you, he's still the biggest.
Yeah. So again, it really depends on how you look at it. So if we look at it strictly from the chess perspective, then yes, no doubt by a mile. If we look at it from like a personality perspective or like perspective of like the contribution that they made, like Fischer arguably has made the biggest contribution, which allowed, most of the players today to make living from chess because of, all the hype that he created at that time and all the demands and how he was as a figure. Also Kasparov had huge, impact. Kramnik had massive impact. So like everyone had their share. But if we talk about it strictly from chess perspective, I don't think it's comparable because how do you constantly beat everyone in the field of like really geniuses? Like, I don't really understand how that's possible. Like if you look at all the other players, like let's say top 10 players in the last 10 years or so, they're all so good. And you could see how like in all of the tournaments it's like one player does better and crushes everyone. The next tournament another player does better and crushes everyone. Maybe someone has a good year, but the next year someone else has a good year. So it's almost like there is some variance in there, but overall they're all approximately the same strengths. And there's one guy who is like above all, which is absolutely crazy. Like I don't really understand how that's possible. I think this is like one in 100 years talent across like any sport, and you could barely see it in in any other sports, and I think it's absolutely insane.
Magnus has been dominating the chess world for like over 15 years, and even Kasparov has been had been the number one in the chess world for like a lot of years. I think also for about 15 years, but he wasn't completely dominating the chess world because he had a strong opposition like Karpov. They had a score +2, +3, +4, but he wasn't completely dominating, the matches.
I'm not sure that's fair because again, matches are very different, right? So, but if you look overall at the ratings and who's dominating the tournaments, like I think it's fair to say that Kasparov dominated at the same level. Let's put it that way. But the difference is that the competition that Magnus is dominating is absolutely insane. It's like you have 10 Kasparovs that Magnus is constantly playing against, and that's crazy. And again, I'm not like directly comparing everyone to Kasparov, but the idea is there. Like they're all so good that I don't really understand how that's possible. And I think like some of it we could talk about today. So like some things are known, but I think the main reason why it happens is because he's just like one in a generation, not even a generation, like one in a century talent. But we could obviously still talk about like what makes him a good player and what are the lessons that we can learn from him. So I think that would be useful. So there are many parts to this, right? So if we talk about Magnus, the mental part is extremely important in chess. The chess is a very mental game, and you could clearly see that Magnus has no fear of losing. And what's even more surprising is that anytime he loses, the next game he comes back stronger. And you could see like that obsession with the game, which is, I think, his biggest advantage. I think he's like the most obsessed person about chess in the world, and that makes him go so deep into everything that happens. I will just give you an example. Probably a lot of viewers like saw this clip when Magnus played against Ivanchuk in I think it was like a rapid world championship. And Magnus blundered a checkmate. So he just blundered a checkmate and he didn't know it was a checkmate. And then the moment it happened, he realized it was a checkmate and it was horrible. And he himself said that was like the most embarrassing, or one of the most embarrassing moments that he's ever had. And after that, he said that he couldn't sleep the whole night. He was like thinking about it. And after that, it never happened to him again. So it's almost like he's obsessed to the point that every little detail matters. And the guy literally in one night rewired his brain to never, face that same thing again. And it literally never happened in his games again. Like he never blundered checkmates like that ever again. And you could see that most other players, like it happens to them way more often. So that's the first part, like the mental part.
Well, so Magnus hates losing, but why do you think he has no fear of losing?
Because he pushes every game as much as it is possible. So I don't think he has any fear of losing. I mean, it depends on how you define it. Like, yeah, of course, no one wants to lose, but like, there's no fear in his moves.
Yeah,
like
I think
yes,
fear of losing can really affect one's game, on any level, because it affects like the way you choose moves. Instead of like trying to win the game, you're trying not to lose the game sometimes, and that's why. And I think that happens to many players, especially on the highest level.
Especially when they face Magnus.
And essentially, that's my opinion. Maybe you're gonna disagree with this, but I think that's why Fischer quit chess, right? I think he had the fear of losing at some point. He started to have an enormous fear of losing, and he just didn't want to lose. And playing chess inevitably involves losing a game at some point, or losing, a few games or losing a match. And it seems that for Fischer, this fear was unbearable, and that's why he decided to quit the game. So whenever you don't have the fear of losing, you are much more on any level. Whenever you don't have the fear of losing, you can be much more, open in your game. You can be much more, I don't know, creative, and therefore stronger, a better player overall.
Well, but you can make an argument that Magnus is now a semi-retired player, and you can see his reactions when he loses games now. And well, isn't it similar to Fischer in some way?
No, to me,
I-
it's not similar at all, because to me, again, the fear of losing and, being upset with the loss are two completely different things. I can tell you that I think I've had the fear of losing at some point of my career during a few tournaments, and I felt like it affected the way I'm playing chess, and I tried to do something about it because I was, playing more restricted. So I think if fear of loss, fear of losing the game, really affects the way you play tournaments. The way you choose your openings for a specific opponent, everything, how competitive you are. So, and these are two unrelated things to me. Like being super upset with the loss, being devastated by it, and having the fear of losing the game. So we all don't like to lose, but being afraid of losing is different thing.
In fact, hating to lose is a crucial quality to have if you want to become a top chess player.
Yeah, you kind of have to learn through losing. There's no other way in chess. And very few people win way more than they lose. Like there are like only a few people in the world like that. But if you check like even grandmaster statistics on chess.com, let's say, they still maybe win like a few percent more than they lose. Or even if they win more, like, they don't win more than like 55% for most of them. So yeah, it's just a part of the game. But I don't really agree with your assessment on Fischer. Like, I don't think that he quit because of fear of losing. I think it was just too much was all that was happening, and he was in some ways like above it all. So like I don't know, just imagine that you once like find like a wire in your hotel room, just once, right? Like how crazy is it gonna make you at that moment? And like how are you gonna treat everything going forward once that happens only once? Like it's crazy. Like the pressure that he had was just insane. Like I don't think that he had like any fear of losing in chess. But again, like we could never know. Like
Yeah,
for
we
sure.
can't know. Obviously, it's not the thing like of why like he quit and became, I don't know,
Crazy
a
person.
little bit insane, right? Like travel the world.
I mean,
That
yes, but again, like they just think about it from his perspective, like from his experience. Like, is that actually insane when like all these things are happening around you? Like, it's I don't think many people could handle even like 1% of what he handled. Like, it's just such an immense pressure on the world level. It's crazy. So yeah, it's just tough. I mean, he had a very challenging life after a certain point. So we never know. I don't think it's fair to like evaluate him in any like real way because we probably don't know so much about what was happening that yeah. Because I think it's like I see it a lot where like people like in the comments they all like say or like videos of Fischer and it's like and even like culturally like that's what I've always heard. It's like oh like he was crazy and he was crazy and like most of those people like don't even like understand like who he was and like what life he had and how challenging it was and they wouldn't again as I said they wouldn't be able to most of those people wouldn't be able to handle even like 1% of what he experienced in his life. So like it's a very like difficult figure to evaluate. It's like you need to have like I guess personal history with him and know a lot of stuff to do so. And then regarding Magnus, I don't think he has fear of losing at all. And the reason why he is not playing in the current world championship cycle is because he truly believes it's stupid. And I actually 100% agree with him. So there's absolutely no point for him to be like a part of it. Also considering that FIDE is a very stupid organization that is doing many stupid things. It's extremely corrupt and terrible. So I guess, that's another part that he wants to, obviously he cannot avoid dealing with them, but he probably wants to deal with them as little as possible. And regarding this, frustration after losing, that's a part of the obsession. And that's a part that if you channel it correctly, it could make you a great player. It could also destroy you, but if you're someone mentally strong as Magnus, then that's definitely what drives him. So like he loses a game, he bangs the table, next game he comes back and he wins. And then what happens? He wins the tournament. And then what happens? He plays, let's say was it Blitz World Championship that he won? And he like had 3 games or so where he lost not because of chess, but because of stupid things. So like he dropped the pieces and couldn't set it up. And then he still came back and he won. The guy is just absolutely insane. Like he just wins almost everything. For basically, if you think about it, for someone to win a tournament, they have to perform way above their level, and Magnus needs to perform way below his level. Because if that doesn't happen, Magnus still wins the tournament. And that's why it's so crazy. That's why like it's almost impossible to win a tournament. Yeah, and that's what makes, this whole situation in the chess world so like amazing. It's like, how is that even possible?
Well, and
so
let's talk about that. Yeah, how is it possible? How Magnus became Magnus? What makes Magnus such a great player, such a dominant player?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
let me give you like some more introduction there, and then we can maybe talk about his history as a player and how he grew up and what were the correct decisions that he made and how a lot of the different variables, kind of came together to make this work, right? If one of them didn't work, maybe he wouldn't be, the best player today. But I think it's important to understand what like even like a word genius means, right? So like, because it's a word that's used quite a bit, but it's like, what does it actually mean? And I think a good analogy would be that you just look at a problem that is extremely complicated that can be, let's say, computed in some way, like chess, for example, was like an engine. And someone looks at a problem and they just know the solution without going through all that computational process, which makes it completely insane. So Magnus is playing a game, it's some weird end game, and then there are different moves that you could play, and there's absolutely no way to know which one is better. And he almost always is going to make the best move. And how the hell is that even possible? And I've heard Dubov say this. It's like, he understands how Magnus does most things and he can do most of them. But then there are just moments of like pure genius where like no one can match that. Like no one has the deep intuition for the game where they can pull it off. And I think that's what makes him a true genius, way above like everyone else currently in the world. And I honestly don't think that anyone is gonna beat his absolute strengths anytime soon. Like, yeah, he can get older and he may lose, but what I'm saying is that in absolute terms, if we pick Magnus, I don't think in the near future anyone is gonna reach that level, even close. Like, it's just not. Just don't think that's possible. Like when I look at all the other players, I almost see how that's possible to achieve, and I see it as a limit. Like I don't understand how you go beyond that. And for Magnus, it's like he's a level beyond that. Like he just feels the game so deeply that it's incredible. And that's what makes him, the best player. I don't know what you guys think about it, and then we can, talk about his upbringing and like how it shaped how he's as a player today.
I also want to say like my perspective on like his genius, because to me it's very difficult to compare the greatest players of different eras, because they, in terms of the raw chess skill, of course Carlsen understands the game better and deeper than everybody else before that. But to me, the greatest world champions are the ones that were way above the field whenever they were around, basically in their lifetime, and when they were playing chess. And by way above, obviously every world champion brought something new to the game, but by way above, I mean something subjective. To me, way above is Paul Morphy, Robert Fischer, maybe Kasparov in a way, though a little bit less. Like, he's a little bit less impressive for me personally, because I think a lot of his success relied on hard work. He worked way harder than some of the other people in his generation, and he worked way harder than Anatoly Karpov. And at some point of your chess career, that does matter. Like, for example, when we take into account the opening preparation, I mean, how much time you spend on that, on the highest level, can affect your results quite a bit. So Carlsen is definitely, in that category of players that are, way above everybody else. Though, yes, these days it's a lot more subtle, because generally we have a lot of great chess players, and all of them are also way better, than the previous world champions. Probably the top 20, 30, or 50, or maybe even 100 players are better than, the best players of the world that played chess 50 years ago. Probably all of these strongest grandmasters are, in terms of raw chess skill, better than those old school players. And so, yeah, in that regard, Carlsen, for me, is not, more impressive than Fischer. Though in terms of raw chess skill, of course, he is better. But what fascinates me about Carlsen is not just his raw chess skill, but yes, his mental aspect of the game and the ability to live a decent, fulfilled life, where he doesn't really sacrifice any important parts of life, like family, relationships, personal happiness for chess. So what I'm really happy with is that we are having such a genius that is having, a ball. He's having a time of his life when playing the game of chess. He's living a fulfilled, happy life, outplaying and destroying everybody and sharing his genius with us. So it's a little bit like, Mozart in a way. We are lucky to observe his playing. That's what I think of. And it would be fair to say that he can produce such results, not only thanks to himself, right, but also thanks to his family, upbringing, father, his mom, his early coaches, his sisters. And of course, that's a crucial part of his success. So, yeah, maybe now is a good moment to talk about his childhood, right, and his upbringing, and the importance of his family in his success. But
Yeah, Pasha,
overall, that's what I think of him.
I think you made a great point about Magnus being a very healthy person. And, because most of chess players, I mean, are somewhat crazy and they don't have such a fulfilled life. But Magnus, plays soccer. Magnus has a family. He has a kid now. So that's kind of unique for top chess players.
Yeah, but to be fair,
maybe.
he sacrificed a lot, right? So like he now I think has a son, but he's like 3 or how old is he? So that's somewhat late. So like he had to sacrifice everything up until he was like 30.
You're very Eastern European, Evgeny.
I know, but you get my point. Like he was like sacrificing a lot. So like I don't want people to think that he somehow is not was not as dedicated. The guy is just so obsessed with the game, as I told you. Like after making one stupid blunder, he just couldn't sleep, and like that was all on his mind. And that's his approach to every little detail. Like he wins a tournament, he wins all the games, and he's still not happy that in 2 of the games he made those 2 stupid moves. The guy is just on another level of obsession. Like most players, they'll be like, "Oh, I won the tournament. Okay, who cares about these 2 moves?"
Yeah.
But for Magnus, it's not like that. He's just like fully in it. Yes, now he's like stepping back a little bit more, and it's amazing that he's got good family and baby, and that's really cool to see. So he's kind of like stepping back a little bit at the right moment, and really happy for him.
Yeah, the ability to live a decent life is a talent on its own. Not everybody. And by decent, I mean decent on all fronts. We have a lot of good people around, but not all of them are living great lives. In my opinion, that's just the reality. But yeah, he has a loving family, right, and a very loving father who's an avid chess player himself, who taught Magnus the game at the age of, I think, 5. And at first Magnus didn't show that much interest in the game, and he started playing seriously a little bit late by modern standards, so only at the age of 8. But it seems like it's not that late, right? It's not that late, and maybe it's even good. Again, one of the things that it shows to me, one of the good things about his parents is that, nobody forced him to play the game. So he started taking chess more seriously and more competitively whenever the game became, more interesting to himself. And again, kudos to his parents and to his father for that. And I think one of Magnus's motivations at that time was beating his elder sister. And yeah, he didn't like losing even then.
Yeah,
Yep.
Henrik Carlsen, the father of Magnus, is probably the main contributor to Magnus's genius, because the way he handled, the way he raised Magnus is absolutely insane. I recently watched an interview by Henrik, and I was like shocked. Let me give you a story that Henrik told. I'm not sure that um, many of our viewers and maybe you guys have heard it. At the age of 14, Magnus cooperated with Kasparov for a very short time, because I knew only about his cooperation when he was when he was already a strong grandmaster. But it turns out that it happened a bit earlier at first, and Kasparov and his team gave Magnus a homework, and Magnus kind of refused to. Well, first he agreed to do the homework, but then Henrik did a fantastic job. He asked Magnus, "Do you want to do that homework?" And Magnus said, "No, I don't really want to do it. I just said yes because Kasparov is such a legend. And imagine you're 14, you're a grandmaster, and you meet Kasparov. You can't say no to that person. I mean, when you're a kid, when you're 14. But Henrik did say no to Kasparov, which is absolutely insane, because I don't think that a single parent would say no to the strongest player in the world who has such huge authority.
And quite contrary, right? They push their child.
Exactly. And Henrik, from the very early age, he actually trusted Magnus 100%. So he asked his opinion, and he never pushed. Like once, again, that's a story from Henrik, that Magnus played a bad tournament and he lost a couple of games. And then they were driving in the car, and Henrik criticized Magnus a little bit. And the moment he did it, he regretted it and never did it again. And that also shows how humble he is.
Only a bit of the Norwegian mentality helped. So you can see, let's break it down. Like you can see how many things needed to come together. Like he's from Norway, so it's a very cool country. They have like their own, mindset. Let's put it that way. Magnus had to be obsessed with chess. He had to have a certain intellectual level where he's capable, in doing chess. he had to have the economic means where they were in Norway, and even not being like a wealthy family, they could still afford the tournaments, they could still afford the coaches. Yes, they were taking risks, but those were within, let's just call it like within normal, like never being on the verge of being homeless. Like you hear some of the stories from like let's say the Soviet Union or like from the Eastern European countries later. So that obviously helps a lot. Then, what you just described, so like his father taking it with an insane amount of humility, which very few people possess. And that is great. So he basically allowed Magnus to develop on his own. And I think users should, and I think viewers should go and, and, look at our previous episode about the hard work. So like why hard work makes you worse in chess or something along these lines. And the idea there in this whole story is that Kasparov is a huge, authority, and he asks Magnus to do a homework. And as far as I remember, it was analyzing his games and writing down like why he made those mistakes and why these moves were bad and stuff like that. So if you look at it from the conventional learning perspectives, that's the most logical thing you can do. You got the best player ever at that moment, Garry Kasparov, giving you homework where you need to analyze your game. You just need to write down a few things. And that is obviously the best thing that you could do, right? But then for Magnus, being the genius he is, he felt deep inside that that was the wrong thing to do and not good for his improvement. And he didn't force it, which is insane, because I think most kids at that age, they would do it. They could do it poorly if they really don't like it, but they would still do it because of all that pressure that they would have from Garry Kasparov, but also from their parents. And this whole idea that at that time when he was 14 was no, 100% knowledge that he's going to become the best player in the world. Like, how do you decline help from Garry Kasparov? That is absolutely insane by, normal standard. But what you could see there is what, for example, I really failed at a lot as a kid, was that the moment something felt unnatural, Magnus didn't push it. He later said many other things about it. Like, for example, he was never able to solve any like complicated studies and puzzles because the moment he would start solving them, it's almost like he wouldn't be able to focus on them, and he would perform much worse than, other players that are much weaker than him. But then when he was playing real games in person versus top players, he would find all those incredible ideas and he would do really, really well. So what really makes it exciting to me about Magnus is that he doesn't understand why those things are the way they are, but he fully is aligned with his intuition, and he always like listens to that inner voice, which is absolutely incredible. And then doing that from the early childhood, I think it really compounded a lot over time. And having, such a family that really supported him and never pushed him into anything is absolutely insane. And all of these things coming together make him, the best player now. There's another part that's interesting is that if you look at Magnus's trajectory as a kid, and let's say you compare it with other players, some other players like they would, increase their rating faster. Some other players that would win the tournaments more. Like Magnus wouldn't win like all the world championships among kids, right? Like Nyapov would win. I think like some other guys did really well, like Howell and other players. But my point is that it really became obvious that he's going to be, a great player later down the line. Like, I don't know what age, maybe 14, 15. But before that, that was like a massive, period of exploration where he was able to try things and explore way more. It doesn't mean that he didn't play as well. Like he would still perform at a very high level, but he wasn't the best in the world at every single age. But since he was able to have that long period of exploration where he managed to explore the game from all the different aspects, that helped him build a much stronger foundation, which now you could see compared to other players. For example, if you look at players like Nepo or Karakin, who were also, same talented kids at that age. And, if you ask people back then, they wouldn't probably tell you like the difference. Like, okay, like these are all, talented kids, and we're going to know once they grow up who's going to be better, but it's not an obvious thing. But now you could see that, for example, Karakin and Nepo, like they're obviously very strong players. But compared to Magnus, like they're not as well-rounded, right? Like they have their limitations. They have like certain weaknesses where certain types of positions, they haven't had enough experience in them. So they're not going to be playing them as well. So you can kind of like poke and find some weaknesses like here and there. You cannot find any of that with Magnus, right? So the only way you can beat Magnus is that you have a good day and something crazy happens, or Magnus has a bad day and he does something stupid. Like there is no other way you beat him. Like it's just impossible to beat him at the human level, which is crazy. But my point is again that he was allowed to have that very long period of exploration, and most kids don't have that luxury because they're demanded to have a rating. They're demanded to have really high like tournament results. And if you don't meet like certain, benchmarks, then okay, like it means you're doing something wrong and you need to reconsider it. But maybe you're not doing anything wrong. Maybe you're still in that deep phase of exploration. And that's exactly what you need. You need to lose more of these games to get more of that experience. So in Magnus's case, just to sum it all up, is that all of these variables, every single one of them, starting from his personality, from his upbringing, from like the coaches that he met, for example,
yes, right?
Yes. So he told Magnus that like don't play one opening, like go pick up a new book, open up a new opening and learn a new opening, try it next week, and then in 2 weeks try another opening and stuff like that. So like all of these things coming together, all of these experiences, they all compounded and made him the best player. There maybe could have been other Magnuses, but they didn't have all these variables come together like so well. For example, Firuza is just an insane talent. Very, very, very close to Magnus in many different ways, but he didn't probably have like all of these variables. He could still come back, I believe, and be like the second best player ever, but it's different for him because of like all those different things. So with Magnus, I think we should really like appreciate how all of these things randomly fell into place, somewhat randomly, and basically produced Magnus, and now we could, all watch his games and enjoy the show.
Well, and again, kudos to Henrik Carlsen, who gave Magnus a chance to enter that deep exploration phase. Because imagine you're a parent of a talented kid, and most players, most coaches, they are telling you that you should have an established, a solid opening repertoire. And I did a little research today. Well, I opened 10 random games that Magnus played at the age of like 10 and 11 years old, when he was already a strong player, but still like not the best player under, let's say, 12 years old in the world. And he played totally different openings in all these like 10 random games. So when he played white, he played c4 on the first move, he played e4, he played knight f3, and as black he played different openings. And most coaches would say that's it's a bad idea, because you should like learn one opening really well, and then you will perform, you will explore it so well that you will beat other kids. And that's true, but it works only short term, not long term. And imagine you're a parent of a kid, and like so many people are telling you that, and I mean, to be honest with you, I'm more impressed by Henrik than Magnus. He's my favorite, because like, how can you know? And it's 2001. The internet just happened, and you can't really like do a lot of research. You should trust your intuition. And that's what they did. Of course, like the Norwegian mentality helped, but still, like there is only one Norwegian we all admire.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And I think so when you just said about the kids, I think the same things exactly apply to adults. It's just they impose all of those things by themselves, right? So they look at it. It's like, oh, I'm so smart. And now I played, for 6 months and I need to be at this rating. Or once I play for a year, I need to be at that rating. And then, they look at it like this. And then when they don't hit those goals, like it's very devastating and it's crazy. So what do they do most of the time? They start studying hard by, buying Chessable courses and memorizing 1,000 different lines and memorizing 1,000 different rules of what they should do in different types of positions. And then after 2 more years, they're still at 700. So same things apply to adults. And like, this learning works the same way for everyone. It just kids learn a bit faster on average. And for adults, you also need to have that exploration phase. And the longer it is, the better. And it's very important. And you will be surprised that by the time you play different openings for a year, then for 2 years, you will be able to play anything, no matter the position, and you will still perform reasonably well. You will be given a position that you've never seen before, and you will still do well, because what you're doing is that you're focusing on improving your skill, not on drilling, the same opening and getting better at memorizing a few lines so you could trick your opponents. So that's a good lesson for all the adult improvers out there. And you could see, again, the approach of Henrik and the approach of Magnus, and you could copy that in many different ways. And they will really help you a lot. The difficult part of it is the ego, right? So like what separated Henrik from all the other parents, because I don't really obviously know too many parents, but from all the experiences I've had, no one was even close to that. And that's kind of, a thing that stops and let's say makes it difficult to achieve greatness and good results. So there is a lot to learn from that mentality, that if you apply it long term, it's going to give you results. I think long term, everyone can get results, and it's just the way you approach it that matters.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Magnus entered the exploration phase, right? So he played tons of different openings. He played a lot of tournaments as well. And like the family of Magnus, they all together, when Magnus was 13, I think already a grandmaster or very close to grandmaster level, they took a van and they traveled across Europe for like, I think half a year. And Magnus and his sisters were homeschooled and during that trip. That was also, I think, actually a very underrated contributor to Magnus' success. Because after that trip, I looked up his rating graph, and after the trip, a few months later, basically his rating went very quickly from like 2,400 to 2,600. And that trip, I guess, I mean, I wasn't there, unfortunately, but I guess it taught Magnus a lot, because, so many things should happen your way to become such a strong player,
Yes.
and during that trip, you mature, and that maturity gives you basically a boost, an acceleration to your improvement. And for funny story, that after the trip, I mean, Magnus' parents, they were afraid that the kids would lag behind at school after they come back. But all the teachers said that that it's incredible. Like we don't see any holes
Deviations, yeah.
in deviations, holes in their education, even though Henrik said that they almost didn't do anything like during the trip in terms
Yeah,
of like
and that's
uh,
by the way a really cool thing. Just very very quickly, like it's a huge myth that like homeschooling is like somehow bad. I mean, the only issue is the social side. But what people don't understand is that in school, in most schools, like so much time is wasted for stupid things that even when you do homeschooling, just 2-3 hours a day, that you probably cover way more than you do like in school, really, in most
no,
schools. So yeah, I can totally see that, where they were not like doing too much. They would do a little bit here, a little bit there. They would get all of these experiences from from that trip, and like yeah, that could totally help them do quite well in school.
So who knows? If not the trip, maybe Magnus would have reached 28, but not 70. You know, so even those little, I mean, those are not little things, but I think it was quite significant.
2800 rating, you mean? I hope not the
Yeah.
age.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we can continue from there. So you said she was, like 16, and then he started becoming a better player. At some point, he reached like 2800. I don't remember how old he was.
Before we dive into that, like once you reach that 2600 level, also it's very interesting that his level dropped 50 points. Like his rating dropped 50 points, and he had a relatively short phase of frustration, and Henrik also like described that very well. That he started playing strong grandmasters constantly, like over 2600 grandmasters, and he was like he had a lot of motivation. He wanted to beat them, and that actually, now I think about it, that you may be right about Magnus not having the fear of losing, because every time he played the strong grandmaster, he wanted to win really bad, but he kept losing. He lost like 50 points, but then at some point something clicked, and his rating skyrocketed to like 27 very quickly. But during that period, there was quite a lot of frustration, but Magnus didn't give up, which is
That's
important.
a really good point, because that's what's required for optimal exploration, right? So like if you're afraid, you're not going to explore optimally, because you'll never try certain things because they seem too scary. So like that approach is, again, you see, like it damages the rating in the short term, could even be a few years in some cases, but it's very advantageous in the long term, because you get that learning, and you get the learning only from trying something and getting punished for it or getting rewarded for it. And that's exactly what happens, right? So like he doesn't care who he was playing against, and he just played, his best and tried to win no matter what. And he received so much learning from that eventually, again, it basically was added to his foundation, to his like existing strong foundation, and then eventually like he shoot up and started, dominating the field.
Yeah,
he learned how to play against those 2700 grandmasters, and he learned how to beat them. And it was also important that Magnus trusted like his way of approaching chess, because in those moments you start having doubts. Like you start having really heavy doubts about like what you're doing. Maybe you should change something. Maybe you should switch to a more conventional way of learning, right? To study all the openings, and to do it the way that most players approach the game. But he trusted himself, and Henrik also trusted Magnus, and I mean his first coach as well, Simona Augustine. So that was very, very important. If not for that, I don't think that Magnus would have ever reached the level where he is now.
Yeah, so he got to the top, and now he's been there for like 15 years. I think he's the number one player in the world, for more than 15 years now. And I think he crossed the 2800 rating in 2011, I think. Though I might be wrong on that one.
2009, 2010,
yeah,
2011,
maybe it was
along
even earlier.
those sides.
The thing is, like, one of the things I think it's quite cool. Maybe it's very, like, you can lose interest once you are the world champion, and once you are the best player in the world. I think it's quite cool that he didn't, pursue the world championship title for a few years. I think already in 2009, 2010, he was good enough to do that. But I think he actually skipped one of the world championship cycles in order to, not worry about anything and just focus on playing chess, because,
Oh, that's a good point, because the official reason that Magnus gave is that he didn't like the format. But now I think about it, maybe it wasn't the format. Maybe just that he didn't want to play the world championship cycle because of different things, not just.
I think it would make sense. And then, so for a few years he had a lot of motivation to just, keep playing, keep beating everyone, and keep crushing every tournament. Then he had the motivation of winning the World Championship match. But also, besides that match, suddenly it became apparent that he was the one who had chances to cross the 2900 FIDE rating mark, which seemed
Impossible.
uncrossable, impossible, unbeatable. I think, Garry Kasparov at his peak had the rating of 2,851 points, I think, right? And Magnus Carlsen got almost to 2,900, which is insane. And that was probably a big motivator for him as well, like for a few years at least. I find that quite cool. Though, of course, probably the biggest thing why he stayed at the top is just the love for the game and, the desire to win and, a lot of other things, not just the titles and points and everything.
Yeah. And it's interesting. So I never like thought about it. But yeah, when he skipped the World Championship cycle, which means like he's basically skipping 2 years, right? It gave him a chance to continue exploring. Because if you look at Magnus, obviously he, like when he got to 2800, like he knew some openings, right? Like it's not that he didn't know the openings, but his game wasn't optimized for openings. Like his game at that time was still optimized for learning in many different ways. Like he would play weirder lines, he would play side lines, he would try to get you into like an unknown position, and then he would try to outplay you there. So you could see is that he probably felt like he still didn't reach that level. He still probably felt that he had like more potential, and the World Championship match would put those limits on him because he wouldn't be able to continue exploring at the same rate because now the results become way more important. So I never thought about it, but it was a very smart idea to just skip and continue playing, just to not have that additional pressure, and continue exploring. And what you could see in his career is that after he, crossed 2800 and he played for a few more years, like at that point, he started optimizing for openings a bit more. And now he's by far the strongest, player in the openings, or maybe
Once
not
you
by far. Maybe there are a few others that are at the same level or similar level, but his openings are just incredible. Like he knows so much. And the interesting thing here is that he only added that into his game once he was the best player in the world. So you see how, and you could see it in everything. Like people do everything in reverse. So they think like, how do you become a great chess player? Like you add this opening knowledge and then you become the best chess player. It's not really how it works. And for Magnus, you could see that he became as good as he could possibly be, or very close to that level. And only on top of that, after that, he started adding more of the opening stuff, like deeper opening stuff. Obviously, he had the opening preparation that was good, but it wasn't the best in the world. But now he has the preparation that is the best in the world, and he's also the best player in the world, which makes him, completely incredible.
And to be fair, he delegates the opening work to other people, so he still hates it.
Oh, I mean, everyone does, right? But still.
But I think he
Everyone
does it
who has
to
the
a
means
bigger
to do that,
extent.
right?
Yeah.
But you also need to do that, the right way, instead of just receiving the lines, you need to sort of tell the people what you want them to analyze and then say that, okay, this I maybe don't like that much. So like even managing that is
and the
requires
way
some clever thinking.
the way he does it is actually very smart. Daniel Dubov, his former second, described how they work as a team. So basically, what Magnus does, he delegates the opening work to other like strong grandmasters, creative grandmasters like Daniel Dubov, for example, and then he asks them to explain the opening with words in a short time. So basically, they set up a chessboard, and then the job of Daniel Dubov is to to explain the opening in a certain amount of time.
It's a Shark Tank, but for chess openings.
Yes.
Yeah, it's also, again, it's so smart because he's minimizing the variance. Because like if you cannot describe it in words, it means it's more chaotic. It means there are more chances to make mistakes. which means there's more variance. So like more likely Magnus could make a mistake. So he's pretty much, by doing this, like he's optimizing for that, which is quite cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you need somebody like Kasparov only if you reach 2800. Then you need all the opening prep, and then you need all the hard work. But before that, explore.
I have a really hot take for that. So I think that the rise of Chessable really killed the potential of many young players. Why? Because they basically got this access to like the database of all the openings, right? Where they could go and memorize and drill. And they got the spaced repetition where if you do it enough times, if you do it for a few years, you're just going to remember all the lines. And that creates a massive shortcut, which in the short term gives a massive boost. But then it undercuts the learning so much that I don't think it's possible to become a great player anymore, or it's very difficult. So I think the generation of young players who are like 22, 2300, like young and up and coming, it really damaged them in a bad way, because it gave them that shortcut, which seemed like, the most beautiful thing you could get. Like I wish, in some sense that I could have that. But at the same time, I know that one of the reasons why I was able to like reach the level that I reached is because I didn't have that. So like I had to explore this whole time on my own. And I think, yeah, a lot of these younger players, like they were really damaged by this, and it created this like whole epidemic. But on the contrary, you have other young players, like this young player from Turkey, then who's crushing the
This girl.
Tatas. No, another one. I'm sorry, I forgot his name. Who's crushing like Tata Steel at the moment? Not crushing, but he's performing at a very high level. Soon, probably to cross 2700. Then there is an Argentinian 12-year-old, Faustina Ora, who's also like crushing it. Not in Tata Steel, but overall, like he is like soon to become a grandmaster. And one thing that you can find that's common among these players and many other like very young talented players is that they all play online a lot. If you look at their ratings, they're at the top of chess.com. They're all 3100, 3200. Sometimes some of them even reach 3300 at times. So from very young age, they play a lot, and that's the main way how they improve. And they play versus strong grandmasters from the very, very young age. And that directly translates later into their classical chess as they continue like their careers. And you could see that like how at 14 would you have all that knowledge and experience? You just can't have that because you literally didn't have enough time on earth to reach that. But they're still somehow able to perform really well versus very experienced grandmasters. So that's one of the things that clearly shows you that knowledge is not, it's not what makes you a great player. It's the true skill of the game. And that's the only thing that matters. And even when you don't have all that knowledge and experience, you could still have a better skill and you could still outplay your opponents, even without knowing anything or without like knowing too much. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I
We
think
can
it
never
may
know.
sound I think it may sound counterintuitive even to a lot of experienced players, but
Oh,
I totally agree
100%.
with you. What is it?
Yeah, 100%.
Because the thing is that that's like that's one of the thing that I had a very strong opinion about as a 15-year-old, like 14-year-old international master. I would, have some good opinion about some players, bad opinion about other players in terms of their actual skill. It had nothing to do with ratings and like opening knowledge and any of that. It was just like this subtle thing that I think of somebody because of the moves they choose in certain situations, because of the like timing and other things. So these are very subtle things that may be, hard to notice. But I had very strong opinions of some players, because of those subtle things.
Let me expand on that. So what you're saying is a completely different, like fascinating topic, which most people cannot understand because they don't have the skill required. So once you have, I mean, you can understand that when you have like some skill and someone has no skill. So you know how you could know something really well, and then you hear someone talk about it, and you're like, oh, that person doesn't know anything about it. They're just sounding smart. And then for someone who doesn't know anything about the topic, they're listening to them and they're like, oh, that person knows a lot. Well, in reality, like they know nothing. And same thing in chess. So chess gives you that approximation of your opponent's mind, in a sense. So you're playing the games, or you're playing a game against that person, or you're seeing the games of that person. And by comparing that unconsciously to your own skill, to your own understanding of the game, that gives you that approximation of who they are and what their level is. And that's from where like it comes. Like you cannot like really explain, but you feel it. Like you feel that they're lacking here and they're lacking there, and they don't understand this, and many of these other things. And again, this whole concept, it works in anything, but in chess, I think it's especially beautiful once you like reach a certain level and you could see that and feel that more deeply.
Coming back to Magnus keeping the world championship cycle, we just until today, I
That
didn't
was
really
like
think about.
yesterday, Misha. That was like yesterday. Okay, sorry,
Yeah,
keep
but
going.
until today, I didn't really think about it, but it's so fascinating, and it aligns with the philosophy of learning of the family of Magnus, like that not going after results, and that's what Henrik keeps saying. That I never push for results. Yeah, so the kid, was trying his best. What more can you ask? Imagine I think it's around 2010. I might be wrong here, but that world championship cycle happened when Magnus was already number one in the world, and you have a chance to become the world champion. That's the dream that all kids who play chess have, and you decide not to do it. Like that is absolutely incredible. How
Yep.
much of a Norwegian mentality does he have? That
You know
is insane.
what's really interesting is that Magnus, like I cannot really see anything that's significant that he did wrong in his like entire career. I think it was like almost perfect. Like they optimized for all the right things. He had all the talent, all the obsession. Like it's like everything came together. And he's basically right about all of these things. Everyone below that, like they all have a completely different opinion pretty much, but they're still like below Magnus. So like all of these things that we're saying, like they're not, like most of them are not considered to be a conventional truth. Like you're literally told to do the opposite at all levels. And the funny thing is that the weaker you are the player, the more it damages your skill. And again, because of that, I think you should all go watch our other episode about, why hard work makes you like worse at chess. So it's interesting that most people, they have that wrong opinion, and I think it's wrong for all the many reasons. And Magnus, he actually got everything right without like fully understanding the details of it. It just felt right. They did it and it all like worked out. And it's so fascinating. And I also want to just summarize it, like all the, important points for our adult improvers. You see that it's not about accumulating the knowledge. It's about acquiring the skill, and that's what matters. And to acquire a skill in a very complex thing like chess, in a very complex game, it takes a long time. And what you want to do is you want to optimize for exploration, meaning that your goal is not to get the best result. Your goal is to experience as many things as possible. For that, you cannot have a fear of losing because you will not try some bold moves, right? For that, you shouldn't have any limitations by the rating. It's like, oh, I need to get to this rating or I drop 20 points. Oh, like it's so bad I dropped 20 points. Like you shouldn't have any of that as well. So like you really need to maximize that exploration. Ideally, the lower your level, the less of that fake knowledge of, these like lines and like all of these rules you want to incorporate in your play, because all of these, they take away from that exploration because they prevent you from exploring things that are contradictory to these moves that you memorize or contradictory to these rules that you memorize and all of that. And yes, it will hurt in the beginning. And yes, it's a long journey that takes years, but then the end result is so rewarding. And this is what I really hope, most people gonna try to do.
And it's not just about the end result, it's about enjoying the process, right? Because like
Yep.
it makes the process more enjoyable as well, because you are just under less pressure, right? Like one of our recent viewers wrote in the comments that, whoa, this was like a super important podcast for him because it made him feel better about himself and about his rating and about everything. And of course, if you feel good about yourself, it makes you appreciate the game a lot more. And yeah, that alone helps you become a better player.
100%. I think there's way more to all of this, but I think for today that's probably enough. We still went a little over time, but this is just a very exciting topic to talk about.
Still not enough. If you talk about Magnus, it should take at least 2 hours. Good, but thanks, guys, a lot for your opinions and for your thoughts about the greatest player of all time. And most of you still watch without being subscribed. So I strongly encourage you to subscribe to our channel, and please leave a comment and give us your opinion about Magnus, whether you think he's the strongest player in the world, well, in history of chess, and share your opinion.